Welcome everyone in our last day of this series of web development, web application development course organized by JRS Excellence. Today, we are going to see some of the very interesting features of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are new, not very new, but from the user's point of view or implementer's point of view, these are still new, but very powerful features. We'll also take a look into what is something more that we can learn or we may be required to learn if we want to develop ourselves further as a web developer. Okay, so let's get going with our session today. Let's take a look at few of new additions to HTML. New additions means it is introduced in HTML5, which is quite old now, so I can't say new, but these are not so frequently used, but as I said, these are very powerful features. IFrame. So IFrame is used to display a web page within a web page. Now you have created a lot of web pages so far, but all of them are isolated pages, and you learned to navigate from one page to another page by using anchors. That is good. But if you have a requirement to embed one page into another page, an example could be a YouTube video. You want to embed a YouTube video into your page, current page. How will you do that? Because these are two separate web pages hosted differently at different places, but you have to have it in your page. Okay. If you went to our website jrsonline.in, you will see a lot of YouTube videos visible on our website because that is embedded using iframes. Another case would be embedding Google Maps. Suppose you want to share your home location or office location on your website. How will you do that? Google gives you a link to your geolocation, but you have to show it on your website. You will have to embed it. Again, iframe can be useful. And sometimes iframes can be useful in embedding some other pages from your own website into maybe the home page or something like that. So iframe is quite useful, and it is used extensively nowadays. So it is not new. It was there since several releases of HTML, and it was being used less earlier. Now it is being used heavily because you are going to see a lot of rich UI. How do you do that? iframe is a tag, as you might have already guessed. Everything is a tag in HTML. So iframe is a tag which requires two properties primarily. Actually, one property is the mandatory, which is src. It is very similar to IMG tag in a sense, if you can relate. IMG requires src and it requires height and width. iframe also requires src and height and width. So it is a placeholder inside your web page. It's a rectangular box where you can specify the dimension, and the embedded src or embedded URL will show up there. It can be a simple image also, which is hosted somewhere, or it can be a URL. The URL could be of the same website page or some other website page. Okay. Instead of providing height and width as separate properties, you can also use height and width styles like this, which will create the window and then load the page as given in src. You can have the same for embedding a YouTube video, for example. So I have two examples here. IFrame width 420, height 315, and SRC. Okay, so these are two ways of defining the height and width. I will show you that example on our website itself. So if I let me go to our websites. So I'll go to first retiuno.com, which is our primary company. Okay, so this is our website, and then if I go to contact page, here you will see our office location and registered address. Now these are our locations, and location, as you can see, is coming from Google Maps. Okay, and I have embedded here using iframe. If I can show you the page source, it will not show up here because it is a it's not a simple straightforward website or web page. It reuses some technologies that are hidden for the browser, but I will show you one quick example of that by creating on the fly, and this will be quite useful for you. So let me create a simple web page as usual, and I do what? iframe, and of course I will have to do SRC, so, but let me save it first. And here I put https://google.com, a pretty simple one, and then I browse the page, and let us see what happens. Maybe google.com is not allowed, or maybe I have put up a wrong ID. Let me do one quick thing that will be more interesting. Let's go to YouTube, okay, and JRS Excellence Web. Let me go to JRS Excellence, fine, and some of the videos. Say this is the video that I want to embed, and how will I embed? Good morning, everyone. Today is the 9th and the penultimate day. Sorry. So if I have to embed this, this is what I will have to embed, right? Okay. So I got this link, and in my iframe, I will put this link. Now I'll come back and see if it is showing up. And for YouTube refused to connect, maybe because it does not have the rest of the content. Let me put it proper HTML construct. Sometime that is mandatory. So we wanted to use the snippet, but it is not working. So we'll try with this whole example, a whole construct, and with a hope that it will work. It is still not working. So what more can be done? Can we do some other website here? Let me say https retiuno.com. Will it show up? Yes. So some websites have blocked embedding, and that is how it is not able to show up. But I am able to embed my own website. Now let me do one quick thing. I say width is equal to 90% and height is also equal to 90%. what will happen? This will expand and it will take this height and width. But height is something that will not automatically grow. So in this case, what I will have to do is set the style, and then I can specify height and width in pixels also, right? Is anyone not able to share see my screen? I have already shared my screen. You can try to log in again and you will be able to see, I believe. Okay, Avinash confirmed that he can see it and hear as well. So yeah, it may be a local problem in your computer. Okay, so in style, I will say width, and instead of relative value, I may give absolute value, say 300 pixel, and height 500 pixel. Will this work? Yes, it works. And I can increase it. So instead of width 300 pixel, I do it 900 pixel, and it becomes bigger. So, and in addition to this, I can always have my own additional content as usual. Yeah. So if I say embedded text website. Okay. So now you will believe that it is your HTML page, while the content that you see in the box is from another website, right? So it's not hosted locally. All right, so this is one nice way of using iframe. You will have to do a little extra to embed a YouTube video and geolocation because some sites disable embedding into another website. That is for security reason and privacy reason and copyright reasons. There are many such reasons. Rituno website has not blocked that embedding, so that is okay, cool. All right. However, if you go to jrsonline.in, you will see videos will play right away here. And so you can see it, and you can I see the source code here? Will it give me something like iframe? Yes, here it is, iframe. And let me put this iframe directly in the page that we were building to see if that shows up, because that's the YouTube video, correct? Okay. Oh yeah, I had to do embed this, so that URL, there is a particular type of URL which is allowed, others are not allowed. So that is a problem with YouTube. Anyway, let's take that screen again. Let's see it. And where did it go? Is it saved? Okay, iframe, I have not closed the original iframe. I'll have to, and then I will see it. Yes. So so this is how I can embed YouTube videos in our page. We can embed the geolocations and any other web page, external web page or internal web page, it does not matter. So iframe is quite useful. All right. So next thing is about embedding your own videos which are not hosted on YouTube, for example, or your own audio. You want to have audio and video play in your web page. And how will you do that? You can do that using video tag or audio tag. An example is given here, and you can also specify a bunch of sources alternatively, because your browser may not have the right plugins to play those videos or audios depending on the formats that are there for the source files. So you may provide multiple alternatives, say MP4, OEG. These are common web formats for videos. So if MP4 is not playable, it will try to load OGC and then play that. So you can specify multiple sources as child of video, similarly for audio, and it will play appropriately. I'm not going to do the example for that, but you can try it and it will be nice experience. Remember, this is for every type of audio and video, but this cannot be used to play your YouTube videos, because YouTube videos can be embedded only using iframe. The next thing very interesting about HTML is data storage. Now there is one very old traditional way of storing data is cookies. Cookies are basically key value pairs, name value pairs, that are storable on the browser, and it is kind of persistent between various sessions. So each domain can have its own cookie data coming from the server side, or you can create it on the client side itself using JavaScript and you store. So what you do, you store some data on the machine. HTML by default does not have access to the client's file system. That means you cannot read anything from the file system of your end user, or you cannot even write anything. That means you cannot save any content on your client's machine. But only one thing that was allowed earlier was cookies, and in most cases cookies will be disabled. Nowadays nobody is disabling it, but you might have observed to get explicit permissions on cookies. Websites will give you a declaration and ask you to accept cookies, because without cookies those websites will not work properly. An alternative was introduced in HTML5, which is called web storage. Now web storage has two advantages. One, it is larger in size. That means in cookies you could store plain simple text key value pairs, but in web storage you can store a complex data structure and total size up to 5 MB, which is a significant data for textual data content. Of course, you can still store text, you cannot store images, etc. But text is good enough. 5 MB of text is good enough to have a significant size local database. Generally, what you do, you store in progress work on the client itself, and in progress means, say you are going through multiple pages and then you are building the data, and finally you would say, here I am done, and then I will send it on server. Traditionally, every interaction, when you transition from one page to another page, the data should traverse to the server, otherwise that data would be lost. Now with web storage you can store the temporary or in progress data on the client's machine, and finally you can send it on server. Take an example of a e-commerce portal. So in e-commerce portal, what you do generally, you browse through the products and keep adding into the cart. And once your cart is full, then you will say, now I will confirm this as an order. And it is high chance that you may leave the cart as it is, or you may leave the cart unfulfilled, like not converted into order. So for server, for persistence, for storage, basically, you would not like to store anything about unfinished order, because it will be waste of space for you. You have nothing to fulfill for the end user. So in such cases, sometimes web storage, which is the client's storage, is useful. You keep storing the data as you build, and finally when you say now place the order, then only that data is sent to the server, as a combined input from you, and then the order ID is generated, that data is saved, and then your order fulfillment process will begin. That's just one example, and that is a very common example. You can relate it with our task list thing, our My Task List app also requires some data creation and data storage. What has been happening so far is that we are adding tasks, we are changing the status of the task, and we build a task list. But as soon as the page is closed, all my data is gone. I don't have it again. Now what I can do is I can make use of the web storage so that I have the data available between multiple sessions or between multiple uh, page navigations within the same session. So that is quite useful, and we can use that feature to simulate a whole lot of client server data exchange situations without actually having the server side implemented. Even without a proper database API and communication established between client and server, that means your website and the backend data store, you can still do a whole lot of work using web storage. So there are two options, as I was indicating. One is local storage and another is session storage. Local storage never expires unless until you have cleaned the data from the local storage, while session storage is for one session. That means once you open the browser and you are navigating from one page to another page from the same domain, by clicking the links, it is considered like one session, unless you have closed the browser and started a fresh browser tab. Okay, so as soon as you close the browser tab, your session ends and all associated data will be deleted automatically. So you have two choices, something you want to store only for this session and something which you want to store across sessions. Choice is available, and you will use window.local storage or window.session storage objects to attach data. And basically it is again a key value pair, and it is technically, it's again it's a textual data, same as cookies. You cannot set expiration though. In cookies you can set expiration or expiry time or life, but in local storage and session storage you can add data, you can remove data, and you can of course read data that you have stored against a particular key, and key has to be unique, as you can imagine. Okay, so it is like a object, it's like a JavaScript object which is available where you can add new properties and their values, and of course you can read those properties as well, and it will give you a string value as output. Now that string can be a serialized object and a stringified object, and that you will be able to use very quickly by converting from string to a JavaScript object, or from JavaScript object to string. You can use that. Of course, you will have to learn a few more APIs or functions for that. One thing that is interesting coming here is window object. So we have seen document object earlier. Window object is also available in browser-based clients like the clients we have been using so far, and it gives us a lot of ready-made functionalities in terms of properties and in terms of methods or functions. One function that we have used earlier is alert. We have been showing the alert dialog, which will show some message for us. That is also made available through window. Alert will not be available on a non-browser client. You may be surprised, or you may be not able to imagine anything which is a consumer of HTML but not a browser. But you can still consume HTML without a browser. Such technologies and such use cases are available. Anyway, so let's not get complicated, and let's just accept at this point that there is one more object available in the name of window, and which provides you a whole lot of properties and functions which are quite useful. And you may like to take a look at those properties and functions. So look for window object in HTML and look for the associated properties and functions. Okay. The second interesting thing in the advanced part of HTML, and basically that is a new addition to HTML5. Video audio is also new. IFrame was not new. Web storage is new, and now graphics is something that has been added into HTML. Yesterday we saw animations and transitions, etc., using style sheet, but graphics is now inbuilt in HTML, so you actually don't need the style properties of animations. You can create your own animations in HTML. There are two options available to you. One requires the use of JavaScript. So still it gives you a way, but it solely depends on JavaScript to actually work. But another one, the second option, is not something where you depend on JavaScript. So let's take a look at each of them one by one. The first element is canvas element, and this helps you draw graphics on a web page, 2D graphics, and you can draw it in using some JavaScript. Canvas is basically a placeholder, a container, which creates a rectangular box as per the dimensions that you specify and some other styling that you do, but it does not draw the graphic on its own. What it does is basically it gives you a lot of JavaScript functions associated with canvas element, and you will have to use those functions to draw the graphics. So to do that, you have to get hold of canvas element in your JavaScript. And to get hold of any element, you remember, you do it, you find the element by ID, get element by ID. So you must specify a unique ID to your canvas placeholder, and then using appropriate canvas functions, you can draw the graphics on that particular canvas. So you have to depend on JavaScript, and JavaScript actually draws the graphics. The types of graphics that you can create are paths or lines, basically boxes like rectangles and squares, etc., depending on the dimension, a four-sided box, circles, some text, and images. So you can pretty much do everything that you would want to do using these. And of course, you can use a lot of colors on the lines and the filling and shading, etc. So it gives you a full capacity of graphics in HTML. But the side effect, or rather I can say drawback, is you have to do all that using JavaScript. But at this stage, you have some knowledge of JavaScript, and I believe you will be able to use that to draw graphics on a canvas. I'm giving you a couple of examples here which you can use to draw the graphics. And let us try this. Let us try to just copy this example and see if we can get the output that we wanted. So I'm going to create a new page, and let me save it as canvas.html, and what I will do, I will create a placeholder first. Okay, canvas, and in canvas I will do ID, so my canvas. Okay, and then height and width. Okay, so let me do this. height height equal to 200 pixel, and width is also 200 pixel. Fine. So I get a canvas. Let me browse this page and see what happens. It doesn't show me anything because it is a simple placeholder. So to make it little visible, I may have to do what? A border. And how do I do border? As a style. So I will specify border property 1px solid blue, and let us see if now appears. Yes, so now I have a placeholder. All right, so it's just a placeholder, but it will not create the drawing on its own. So let me do this. In fact, after this I will do. So I write a script tag, and then I will write some logic here. Okay, and I am able to write script even without function. We have done that earlier, but functions will be good way to organize my code, and so as a practice I will do that. Function draw graph, and then I will make a call to function immediately after this. So draw graph function, when I make a call to this, the logic will get executed. So let me build the logic. It will be easier for me to only comment this line if I don't want this whole logic to get executed. So it is always good to wrap your logic inside a function and then call that function. Okay, so my ID is this. Okay, and then I have to hold it. So I said my canvas is this. And what was the other API? It asks for context. So I will get the 2D context as it is saying, and then I will do move to begin the move the cursor to that point, and then do a line and then stroke. Okay, so all that will be done on the context. So I will have to first get the context, and I will say my canvas dot get context, and here I will say 2D context. Fine. Now I will say move to and the coordinates. So now it will work on coordinates, x and y coordinates. And the next one is line 2. From that initial point, move the cursor to that 0, 0, and I'm saying line to 200 by 100. And now you can imagine 200 is the width, 220 is the width. So it will go horizontally, and then 100 down means it will go down by 100 from 0, 0. So it will be drawing an inclined line, and then I say ctx dot stroke, and I will not actually do this ctx stroke initially to see what happens. Is it mandatory? All right, so I have created this, and the function is finally called at the beginning, at the end, so that this is executed immediately without any user event. So it's not doing anything. So if I do the stroke, then it will show something. I hope it doesn't. You have to put colors. element. Oh, my spelling is wrong. ID. Yeah. So this is a problem with JavaScript. Most of the time it will not show you any error, and you will be at a short. But you can use these developer tools and it will work for you. Fine. So it is drawing a line. Okay. Then I can create another line, and I say from line to 100 to 100. So it will go backward and draw something more, right? And then I can say line to 0, 0. So it will finally give me a shape of a triangle. Yeah, so I can draw pretty much any shape that I want by appropriate function calls, right? And I can do a fill also, but I don't remember the fill functions logic. So let us see if I have that in the next example. Okay, so I have this example that is on the text basically, and I say context and then font. I'm setting the font for the context in the context, and I'm saying fill text this and from the beginning and end. So let us now replicate this in our example. So what I'm going to do is do the next part, and I will say context dot font, and it is as good as setting this font style. So I say 30 pixel Arial, and I can give a family of font too, I believe. And then I will say CTX fill text. Now, if you are using some intelligent editor, you may get some suggestions. Notepad is a little bit intelligent, but it is not enough intelligent where it is suggesting me something. It is suggesting, but it is not suggesting everything. If you use some editors which are more intelligent, you will get better support. And I say, okay, 10, 50. I'm just replicating what is already written here so that I get the same experience, no surprises. So here it wrote hello world starting from the point 10, 50. That means 10 x direction. First coordinate is x, which is horizontal, and then 50 is the y. And remember, 0, 0 is the top left corner, and positive y goes downward and positive x goes leftward. You can do negative values also, and if I do negative 50, then you can negative 50 will make it up, and which will become invisible. So if I start with minus 10, it will be little shifted inside, or it will go inside the left edge. Yeah, so it appears like this. So you can control the coordinates, and you can also control a whole lot of things. You can use appropriate functions on canvas to draw pretty much anything that you wanted to draw. Canvas is quite useful in building HTML based games. So you can create your own game and you use it for fun. You can create tic-tac-toe, you can create ball games and pretty dense games also. You don't need any other technology, just canvas and your JavaScript knowledge will do that for you. All right, it's very interesting. The next option for creating graphics is SVG element. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics, and scalable means it automatically increases or decreases in size. It scales easily. The zooming is done nicely. Even if you have changed your screen dimension, etc., or you zoom it properly, you scale it you can scale using transformations. So these kind of graphics will scale properly and it will not blur out. Canvas, once it is drawn, the browser will forget about the dimensions. So if you change the dimension of the screen, it will not auto scale. But in SVG, because it is coordinate based, it will scale easily and it will not get broken into uh, uh, a pixelated image. No, pixelation happens in Canvas, but pixelation does not happen in SVG because it is not made by pixels. Okay, so an example for that is SVG tag, and then it SVG gives you a lot of other HTML tags like circle, rectangle, rect, etc., which you can use to create similar shapes that you would create using JavaScript functions in Canvas. So SVG is giving you similar features. You will have to learn HTML tags equivalent, and in Canvas you have to learn appropriate functions on Canvas and its context. But SVG may give you better experience in some cases. Okay. Uh, the side effect, if you want to create games, etc., canvassing may be easier because you are anyway creating the canvas images or graphics using JavaScript, and in gaming you will require more of JavaScript to control the behavior of your images and objects. But in SVG, you are doing it in declarative form. So if it is not changing dynamically, SVG will be a lot easier than canvassing because you don't need to know JavaScript for SVG. Okay, let's create this example in our page itself. Okay, so I have already used Canvas, and let me put up SVG now. So SVG is the primary tag. In earlier days, SVG required additional plugins on the browser. Now it is available out of the box. So SVG will also require its dimensions. So let me put that, and I will say 100 pixel, and what height 100 pixel. So it's a square that I got it, and circle. Now you can see that circle is not being recognized by Notepad++ as a known HTML tag, but it is one of the known HTML tags inside the SVG. Okay, so SVG will accept that. So CX means what I'm going to create here is not a circle, but an elliptical shape. So let's try that. I can create elliptical shape, I mean, using circle command, but I'm creating a pure circle for now. Okay, so let me just keep this simple. CXCY indicates the coordinate of center, X coordinate and Y coordinate, and R indicates the radius. So let me see if it is enough, or I have to add more properties on the circle. Yep, so it created the circle, and by default it is filled with black color, and it is because it is filled, I don't know if border color is different or there, but border color is also black for now. Okay, all right, so let's take a look at other properties. Stroke green. Now if I do stroke green, what will happen? Stroke green, will it make a border green? Let us see that. Yes, it looks like it's not that visible, but it looks like it is a green border. Can I make it a little more visible by changing the color? Maybe yellow. which will contrast well with black. It looks like you see a little shading, but black is too dark for us. Okay, stroke width is like border width, and that will make it more visible. So stroke width will make it thicker border, and that will make it explicitly visible that we have it as a border color. You see, now it looks like a eclipsed sun, right? All right, so let's not make it an eclipsed sun. Let's make it look like a proper sun, and then we will say fill color, and fill color, which is black by default. If I say orange, because I have already used yellow for the edges, and if I do orange, then it may look little different. So let us see how it appears now. Yeah, so it now looks like a rising sun at least. Okay, so you can create, and now what you will see, if you zoom and well, I can zoom it in certain way. How can I zoom? Of course, using styles and animations and transitions, right? So let's try that, and I will apply class, and I will apply class, say SVG circle. Okay, if I increase the size of this, how can I do that? Let me change this style, change this explicit width height to style property first. Height 100 pixel, width 100 pixel. After every change, I must make sure that it works, right? It is always good to re-verify. Now, let us start adding some styling that we learned yesterday. Okay, and what did we learn? We say when I hover over this, it has to have something. So let me first define this style class SVG, and so that I don't have to specify inline styling, because I can use the class to do the same, right? Okay, so I did this, and I can now remove this style, inline style property. And again, quick verification, it still works fine. So now I can do what? I will say SVG hover, and I do hover, and what I will do here is simply increase the size of this, and let me make it much larger, 500 by 500. So I am making it so big in the size. But what happened? When I move the mouse, the SVG is becoming bigger, but is the circle becoming bigger? No. So that is not enough. What I will have to do is use the transform to make it bigger, correct? So here, instead of doing this, I will have to use transform function, correct? So transform, and how do I do it? Do you remember anything from transform? Transform. Let's go back to transform and learn. So whenever you are stuck, you know what transform property does, but you don't know, or you don't remember exactly what would be the properties. So transform CSS and search on that, and I may get some information on transform properties, and I will say scale, transform scale, and I can do that, right? Transform scale property will work for me. Okay, so how can I do it? Transform which property? width and transform property width will scale. Fine. So let me do this. Transform width scale 2.0 height and comma height scale 2.0. Will it work? Let us try. In hover, it's not working. Did I specify properties correctly? I might have made a mistake. So let us take a look at the property sorry, I am using wrong property. I had to do transform, and transform does not take the, what I specified is the transitions, which is not correct. Okay, so transform will scale, and there should be a scale y and scale x functions. So I will now pick the values properly, scale y, and yeah, here are the functions. So scale x and y, I can do that together. That is what I was looking for. So, okay, so 2 comma 2 scale is a function, and if I do this, will it scale? Will everything will scale? Yes. So the whole picture is scaling, and now I scale it to say 10 times. Will it scale that way? Yeah, but you see the pixelation has not happened. It has scaled, but the picture is still correct. Now I do the same scaling on canvas. Okay, let us try that. And I have this ID, so I will use the ID thing, ID, and hover, and same kind of transformation, exact same transform, so that when I hover over the graphics created by canvas and see how it appears, you can see it is now pixelated, the blocks, but SVG will never pixelate. So that's the advantage of using SVG. It will never pixelate even if you scale to very high value. And if I scale it to now say 80, then also it will not pixelate. Of course, most portion will go out of the screen, but it will still not become blocked. You see, it's not even visible, but the color is still intact, or the dimensions, even if the dimensions have scaled to 80 times more. All right, so that's the advantage of SVG. All right, so that is the graphics part in HTML. These are some of the useful things that you can still learn beyond your basic understanding of text and inputs, and make use of that along with the styling. Next, what we will learn is about styling, but I would take a break now, and in the next session we will learn about a little more on styling and a little more on JavaScript as well, because these 3 technologies have been with us for last 2 weeks. All right, let's take a break and let's come back after 5 minutes.